Scott Golden with the Power of Perception Twitter and Golden Opportunities Coaching Company here with you on this YouTube audio channel. Welcome to those of you who are new. Welcome back to those of you who are seasoned veterans of what we do around here. We give an audio dissertation almost every day on a topic of the day. Today we're going to talk about the power of powerful progressive language. You know, it's so interesting that the words we use help to co-create the reality we experience. And most often people don't realize those words happen in the unspoken and spoken way. What you allow to be said about you, what you allow to say within yourself, both out loud as well as inside of yourself, matters greatly. It almost matters just as much as the actions you take, because your language becomes a foundation point to your belief systems, which then influences your actions. So it's so important to have powerful, progressive language. You know, we have a lot in our society to be grateful for, but oftentimes we spend time thinking about the things that are going wrong instead of the things that are going right, or the things that are hardships versus the things that are growing. And when we focus on growth continues. When we focus on lack, then the ability to change the energy and actions we take towards a growth that we desire becomes difficult. Now, I'm not saying, nor would I advocate, being positive thinking all the time. That doesn't work, because negative emotions have their place too. What I would advocate, however, is the necessity of turning a negative emotion into an invitation for change. It's not to say that we don't have challenges that are uncomfortable upon occasion, but every time you have an uncomfortable emotion, it is an opportunity to change the language of how you speak about it. Even if you were to say, I'm, having some financial difficulties that are coming to a close, or I am having some relational challenges that I'm overcoming, that is so much better than my relationship sucks, or I am lonely, or I am defeated, or the best of my life is behind me. Even when we go into a neutral state and we say, I'm looking for new opportunities, I'm looking for chances to grow, I am looking for chances to expand on what I'm good at, what we then create is a possibility within our ability to redefine our focus. There is no value inside of stating negative things just for the sake of stating them. Now, it doesn't mean you can't have the emotions, but emotions in all things are choices. They are choices of focus first, and then choices of action second. In other words, can I focus on something that's going to lead me forward, or do I choose to focus on something that is leading me backward or keeping me stuck? The past cannot be changed. The future does not exist outside of this present moment, as in, what you do with this moment will co-create the future you desire, and therefore every action you take matters. Your thought action matters a lot. Your self-talk matters just as much. When your I am statements are progressive, you will find opportunity. When your I am statements are dismissive, you will talk yourself out of things that can be yours. Now, this alone does not create the life you desire. You must take progressive actions on a consistent basis as well. However, your statements of and are far greater than your statements of but. What I mean by that is the following. I am having some challenges and I am overcoming them. I am having some difficulties and I'm learning ways to deal with them. I have some stress and I'm looking for ways to alleviate it. It doesn't deny what is, but it expands your ability to respond and react in a meaningful way. So often clients I coach are individuals who have limited themselves with their internal language for so long that they actually believe that the definition of where they've been is the definition of the history of where they will always be. When we close ourselves off to the opportunity of expansion, we also then invite things like despair, anxiety, depression, frustration, anger, suicidal ideation, bad decision, impulse control challenges, and all these other things that we don't really want. So it's not to say constantly be positive. Even if you need to move to a place of being neutral, that is far better than staying where you've always been. Furthermore, you have the ability to determine the number of people that are in your life who are adding to your daily existence, who are adding to who you are as a person. And if a person you're around on a consistent basis is not on the train of helping you be progressive, perhaps you must give yourself permission to say, I've outgrown this person, or I've outgrown letting myself listen to things that aren't allowing me to progress. Sometimes people don't even realize how negative or dismissive they're being because it's become a habit. If we look at social media, if we look at regular television media and different ways of being, what do we see? We see the majority of the news is negatively slanted. Why? Because that is the belief that people choose the negative or focus on the negative. It doesn't have to be that way just because it's been that way. You and I and each of the 7 billion people on the planet have an ability to discern, a choice to discern. What do I choose to engage with? Where do I choose to put my focus? How do I choose to spend my time? Because here's the thing. If at the end of the day you have not a belief in your ability to make better choices, then the changes you desire cannot happen. Because where you are, your circumstances now, as uncomfortable as it often can be, are a result, at least in part, of your choices. Your choices of what you've done, your choices of who you've associated with, your choices of where you've gone. Now, I know there will be people who say, well, what if I was placed in a abusive situation? What if I was never given opportunities as a child? But even in those moments of the worst possible abuse or despair, there's still choices. Could I reach out to somebody that may help me? Could I go in a direction that may lead me to meet somebody new? Could I speak out even if I don't think someone will hear me? Can I choose to focus on looking for that outage as opposed to accepting the limitation of where I am? And the answer is always yes. The power of choice, even in the most war-torn, miserable, difficult places, even in those places, still exists. Now, the outcome of the choices may not be comfortable, but the power of the choice can never be taken away. And the language you use around what is there will either be constructive or destructive, progressive or regressive. And the choice of those things is so very valuable. On an offshoot of that is the misnomer that other people can affect your self-esteem without your permission. What I mean by this is that ultimately, so often we go, well, somebody else said, and so I think. Well, somebody else did, and so I think. Well, this is how I view myself. And you ask a person, well, my mom said this, or my dad said that, or my ex said this. But that's not about how you view you. How you view you is in your control. Just because an impulse has been made to make a statement doesn't mean you have to accept it as truth. And just because multiple people are making similar assessments based on group mentality doesn't mean it's the definition of who you are. Remember above all things that your history does not have to become your destiny, that each time you awaken in a new day is infinite possibility based upon the actions you take and what you tell yourself is possible. Will it take work? Yes. Is it often uncomfortable? Most likely. But it's uncomfortable because anytime we push ourselves beyond what we believe is possible, there's discomfort in the growth of that. Become comfortable with becoming uncomfortable for a season to get where you want to be. You don't have to believe what someone else says. You just have to believe in your ability to counteract it if you don't agree, or to fall in alignment with it if you do agree, but make it your own. There is no person that is going to do things, see things, be just like you. There are people with whom you can find commonality. There are people with whom you can find common ground, but no one will live this life in exactly the way that you do. And the unique nature to which you bring life is the reason you're here. You need to be you. Own whoever that is. Expand whoever that is in ways that make you feel good as long as they do no harm to others intentionally. And the reason not to do harm to others intentionally is simply from the basis of the energy that exists when we are kind. Kindness allows expansion. Hatred causes division. And when we cause division, we block opportunity. Oftentimes, and we don't realize this, but we are coming into the world as children with a blank slate belief that everything will be okay. Every learned behavior of fear outside of survival instinct is a response to something somebody else taught you, somebody else told you, somebody else implanted upon you. It doesn't mean it has to be your truth today, just because your parents, just because your friends, just because your family, just because a social group at school 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago has a belief about you doesn't mean it has to be the self-talk that is there. There is recovery for every person who wants to re-engage with their true self. Your true self is unlimited because the only limitations that are there are the limitations of belief. If you do not believe something is possible, then you will find opportunities to prove it true. If you do not believe you are worthy, you will find circumstances that prove that to be your truth. Because the only opportunity you have to create is based upon your beliefs. Now, does that mean that it's going to be easy and that everyone is going to get handed something? No, and in a lot of times, and in a lot of ways, the misconception that any person is owed any more or any less than another often leads to separation and leads people to quit on their dreams because I didn't get my break. But the breaks that you create is through the connections that you make. Therefore, look for opportunities to grow. Look for opportunities to say your truth, whatever it is. And even if it means that people think you're a little crazy, even if it means that people think you're a little delusional, that you could be one of the people to change the world, guess what? Every person who ever did dealt with the same critics. Use your critics to inspire you to prove them wrong. Don't use them as definitions of your identity. Use them as opportunities to traverse what seems impossible. Every person who has ever done a great thing wonders within themselves if they will, but at the same time they have a faith and a trust and a knowledge that they can, that it's possible if they just align with the right opportunity and the right timing. And what we say about ourselves starts that. If you say, I'm going to do great things beyond what I even imagine now is possible, what you're doing is you're opening up a possibility to prove that true. You're opening up a pathway to prove that true. What you say becomes your truth internally. Even if it doesn't materialize into the opportunity you desire, it's still what you believe. It still becomes your truth, and you live your truth every day through your actions, consciously and habitually. Habitually meaning unconsciously or subconsciously or beyond the level at which you're aware. You're living that. And so if you are where you are and you don't like where you are, what you must do is examine the beliefs that led you to where you are. See if they're working for you. Don't believe another person's way. Believe a way that makes sense to you, because everything that you believe, you have to fully be invested in for to get the maximum benefit from it. If you don't fully believe in it, then you're not going to live it. If you don't live it, then you can't get the maximum juice or fruit from it. Instead, what you'll get is a watered down version of whatever that belief is. Remember, too, that the language you say, even in jest or in sarcasm, has some truth to it. So it might be okay to say, hey, I'm not feeling like I look the best today, and give a half smile. But don't ever say, I am ugly, I am unworthy, I am, not powerful, or I can't, or I won't, because those limitation statements become buried in your habitual mind, and even if they're said to make someone else feel better or for another reason, you'll eventually believe them and limit yourself. There are people that have virtually nothing that are happy. There are people that have virtually everything that are miserable. What causes that? It is a cause based on what they believe about themselves and how they interpret the events that have happened to, around, or for them. Your beliefs create your life experience, at least in part. And so it's important to find a way to deal with those in a way that works for you. Once again, Scott Golden, Golden Opportunities Coaching, reminding you, keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment. Until next time, everybody.